It was Tuesday, for 17 p.m., and I was parked across from the glass entrance of Aurora and Chase, the mid-tier architecture firm where Alyssa worked. The same building I'd dropped her off at dozens of times without thinking, without questioning anything, without even glancing at the people walking in or out of it. Today was different. Today I was watching, not out of suspicion.
Y had no suspicions.
That's the strange part. I just had this itch, not even in my gut, but somewhere behind my eyes. I'd spent the whole day thinking about her laugh, the one she does when she's genuinely happy, and something inside me wanted to see it again, raw and unfiltered. So I bought her a coffee, her usual order, extra vanilla, oat milk, light ice. And I waited, staring through the tinted windshield like some creep with a nervous twitch in his leg. I wasn't supposed to see what I saw. She exited the building a few minutes later, not with her usual messy ponytail and tote bag swinging wildly, juggling her phone like she always did. No, this was a performance. She walked like the ground owed her attention. She had lipstick on. Lipstick. Deep red. She only wore that for weddings or rare dinner parties with her friends from college who never liked me. I blinked and looked again. She wasn't alone. There was a man walking beside her. Maybe early 40s. Tan trench coat, tailored pants, that air of practiced relaxation, like someone used to being in control of rooms, people, attention. I watched her laugh at something he said. She touched his arm. Lightly. Briefly. But not the kind of touch you give a colleague. It was the kind you give when you're confirming something, territory, chemistry, approval. I didn't even have time to form a thought before they stopped just past the revolving door. And then she kissed him. No, let me be clear. It wasn't long. It wasn't dramatic. But her hand cupped his face. Her fingers curled behind his ear, like she'd done to me in quieter, slower moments when we were alone. My chest hollowed so fast I forgot how breathing worked. The coffee I brought her slid from my lap and spilled over the passenger seat. But I didn't flinch. I just stared. She didn't see me. Not yet. And maybe I should have driven away. Maybe I should have saved myself the next 5 minutes of life-shattering clarity. But I didn't. I got out of the car. I didn't shout. I didn't run. I walked. Purposefully. Like I was part of the sidewalk. Like the air had slowed down to make room for me. She turned just as I reached them. Her smile vanished so violently it looked like pain. For a second, she blinked, calculating, hesitating, and I swear to you, in that moment, I saw 100 lies queue up behind her eyes like passengers at a crowded airport, all waiting for departure. "Mark?" she said. Too loud. Like the volume could somehow steer this in a different direction. The man looked between us, confused. He clearly didn't recognize me, or he was pretending not to. Alyssa stepped forward and put her hand on my arm. Not lovingly. Strategically. She was already in damage control mode. "What are you doing here?" I smiled. Not kindly. I don't think I've ever smiled like that before or since. "I brought you coffee," I said. "Thought it'd be a nice surprise. I guess we're both full of surprises today." The man cleared his throat. "Is everything okay?" I looked at him. Then I looked at her. "Why don't you tell him who I am?" She didn't answer. That silence? That was the loudest sound I've ever heard. So I told him. "I'm her husband." You know when you drop something fragile on tile and there's that half second before it shatters where your brain catches up to what just happened? That was his face. One heartbeat of disbelief before the crash. He actually stepped back. I'll give him that. At least he had the decency to look blindsided. Alyssa, though? No shame. Just a scoff and a tight, frustrated laugh. Not fear. Not guilt. Annoyance. "Mark, you're being dramatic," she said, brushing her hair back like I was embarrassing her at a restaurant. "You kissed him." "That's not." She stopped, then shifted gears so fast I almost missed it. "It's complicated. And this isn't the place." "Oh, I think it's exactly the place." He tried to interrupt. Started saying something about not knowing, about being misled. But I wasn't listening to him anymore. I was watching her. And she was no longer trying to hide the storm. She was done pretending. Her voice dropped, sharp and cold. You show up unannounced, stalk me out of nowhere, and now you're ambushing me in public? Grow up. I flinched. Not because of the words, but the tone. That tone. I'd never heard it before. Not once. It wasn't a snap or a slip. It was who she really was. Hidden under years of smiles and soft tones and slow dances. And in that moment I wasn't even angry. I was fascinated. Like watching a mask fall off a statue you thought you'd built with your own hands. She turned to the man. I still didn't know his name and said, "I'll call you later." Like I was a neighbor with a noise complaint. And then she walked right past me. Didn't look back. Didn't say sorry. Didn't even try to explain. Just left me there. Standing in front of a half-spilled coffee, a stranger, and a version of reality that no longer existed. I didn't follow her. I got in my car, turned the engine on, and sat in the parking lot until the sun started to bleed out behind the buildings. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, blinking at my own reflection in the rearview mirror, trying to figure out if the person looking back at me had always been this clueless. And that's how it started. Not with suspicion, not with a fight, but with lipstick, a sidewalk, and a single sentence that still echoes in my skull like a curse. Grow up. I didn't go home that night. Not because I couldn't face her. I could. I wanted to. I wanted to walk through the door, flip the table she bought on discount from West Elm, and demand every lie she's ever told cataloged like library records. But there was something worse than rage clawing under my skin. It was this numb, slow-burning confusion, like I'd walked into a room and forgotten why I was there. I drove aimlessly for hours. I passed my exit 3 times. I stopped at a gas station just to sit on the curb and stare at a row of energy drinks I didn't want. Around midnight, I pulled into a 24-hour diner off the highway and ordered food I didn't touch. I was surrounded by strangers, all wrapped in their own late-night chaos. And somehow that felt safer than going home to the silence she'd leave behind like perfume after a party. Around 2 a.m., I finally drove back. The house was dark except for the kitchen light, which she never leaves on. I stepped inside quietly, half expecting her to come out swinging with some performance-ready apology. Maybe even tears. But she was on the couch, scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. She looked up at me like I'd come home late from work, like there hadn't been a public humiliation 12 hours ago. "You're late," she said, not sarcastically, not sweetly, just flat, robotic. I stood there. The air between us thickened like something was dying in it. "You're seriously not going to say anything?" I asked. She set her phone down slowly. "What do you want me to say, Mark?" And there it was. The question. The gauntlet. I wanted her to crack, to confess, to plead, to do something human. But instead she leaned back like this was an argument about laundry or dinner reservations. "How long?" I asked. She sighed. Not in guilt, in annoyance. "This again. This again? Alyssa, I found you with someone else. I watched you kiss him." She scoffed. "It wasn't a kiss. You saw a 2-second goodbye. You're spiraling." "No, you're lying." She stood up now, slowly, deliberately, her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. "Fine. You want honesty? You really want to do this?" I nodded. 6 months. I think the sound I made wasn't even a word, just breath failing in my throat. "With him." Another shrug. "Among others." That stopped time. My brain couldn't form a picture of what she just said. Among others? Like it was a joke? Like this was just some side quest she completed on her way to being a better person? I stepped back involuntarily, like her words had physical weight. So this wasn't a one-time mistake. This is just... what now? A hobby? She tilted her head, as if I was the unreasonable one. You're not exactly the man I married, Mark. You've been sleepwalking through life. You don't listen. You just exist in the same house as me. You think surprising me with coffee makes up for years of being emotionally invisible. Emotionally invisible? I said, laughing, because what else do you do when the floor drops out under your life? I've supported you, stood by you, let you chase jobs, move cities, switch careers 3 times. I've been there, Alyssa, every step. And yet, she said, stepping forward, you never really saw me. My hands were shaking. I couldn't tell if it was fury or heartbreak or both tangling into something unrecognizable. So instead of talking to me, you go out and find men to fill in the blanks? She didn't blink. Yes, that one word. Not defensive, not apologetic, just factual, like an answer on a quiz. Yes. And for a moment, something inside me stopped bleeding and started calcifying. I looked at her, really looked at her, and I didn't see the woman I married. I saw a stranger wearing her face. You don't even feel bad, do you? I feel free, she said. Isn't that what matters? No, it's not. Not if freedom comes at the cost of decency. Not if it means gutting someone else without warning and calling it evolution. I nodded slowly. I think I even smiled. Not because anything was okay, but because finally, the fog was gone. I could see her clearly now. She mistook that silence for surrender, sat back down, picked up her phone again, said like we were roommates discussing chores, we should probably talk about what this means for us. Later. No, I said. We'll talk now. But I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I walked into our bedroom, grabbed a duffel bag, and started packing. Not clothes, documents, the lease, the spare car key, bank statements. She followed me down the hallway like I was being overdramatic, like I'd forget about it by morning. You're making this bigger than it has to be, she called after me. And I replied with a calm I didn't know I had. No, you already made it bigger. I'm just finally stepping out of it. The thing no one tells you about betrayal is that it doesn't just hurt once. It loops, like a song you hate but can't stop hearing. Even after the facts are out, even after the confrontation, it keeps playing in the background of every moment that follows. I left that night. I didn't slam the door, didn't shout one last thing for dramatic effect. I just walked out, my bag slung over my shoulder. A man who used to have a home and now just had a destination. Anywhere else. I drove to a friend's place. Dylan, someone I hadn't seen in months but knew would open the door without asking questions. He did. Said, dude. With a look that told me I didn't need to explain right away. I didn't sleep. Not because of the couch, but because my mind had become a projector playing back every moment of our marriage in fast forward. Except now the scenes were twisted. That vacation to Seattle where she said she felt more in love than ever? Was she already talking to someone else then? That weekend I was sick and she had to work late both nights? Was that real? Or was I just too tired to notice the lie? The next morning I got a text. From her. No apology. No explanation. Just, we need to talk logistics. When can you come get the rest of your stuff? Cold. Sterile. Like she was arranging a carpet cleaning. I didn't respond. Not yet. Instead, I called our bank. Checked the joint account. And sure enough, she'd already moved half the money. Not discussed. Not negotiated. Just gone. Then the real surprise came. I got an email from HR at my job. I work in marketing for a tech startup, nothing flashy, but tight-knit. The email subject line was vague. Concerning your spouse. I opened it thinking it might be a mistake. No, not a mistake. Apparently, Alyssa had applied for a consulting contract with the firm 2 months ago. Used my name as a referral. Didn't tell me. Got it. And while she was in the building for a presentation, she'd been spotted, holding hands, with one of the senior partners. The same guy I'd seen her with outside her office. His name? Travis Cole. Married. 3 kids. Publicly very into family values. Privately, apparently into my wife. The email wasn't about outing them. HR was being careful. Concerns about conflict of interest. Respect for your privacy. Blah blah blah. But the message was clear: we know and you should too. I sat at Dylan's kitchen counter for almost 20 minutes without moving. Just rereading the email over and over, each sentence digging in deeper. So not only had she lied, not only had she been unfaithful, she'd inserted herself into my professional world, like infecting a second part of my life just for sport. I finally called her. She picked up on the 3rd ring, voice sharp and annoyed. What? You applied to my company? There was a pause, then the fakest sigh I've ever heard. I was looking for opportunities. It's not a crime. With Travis Cole? Mark, if you're gonna start dragging other people into this. You dragged him in when you grabbed his face in public like you were in a bad soap opera. Oh my God. Are you jealous or just petty? That was it. The flick of the switch. Not shame. Not remorse. Just disdain. She wasn't even pretending to care anymore. I'm not jealous, I said. I'm disgusted. You went out of your way to ruin 2 families. Was that the plan? Make sure if you burn, we all burn too. She laughed. You're so dramatic, Mark. This is why I couldn't breathe around you anymore. I never stopped you from doing anything. You chose this. Her tone shifted. A bite in her voice now. You want the truth? You were boring. Predictable. You made life feel like a checklist. You never asked what I needed, just kept playing husband like it was some 9-to-5 job you were stuck in. So yeah, I looked elsewhere. I found better. Silence. Just that word echoing. Better. That was her truth. That was who she really was. And maybe she'd always been like this, only now I was finally seeing it. Fine, I said. Then I'm done trying to protect any of this. What does that mean? She asked, suddenly cautious. It means you'll hear from a lawyer soon. And I'll make sure Travis's wife hears from me first. The pause was longer this time. You wouldn't. You sure about that? She hung up. I stared at the screen for a long time before placing the phone down like it was made of glass. And for the first time in all of this, I didn't feel lost. I felt focused. It wasn't just about heartbreak anymore. It was about reclaiming everything she thought she could walk away from unscathed. I didn't wait. That same afternoon, I did something that felt like stepping out of a burning house barefoot. Painful, reckless, but necessary. I searched Facebook for her. Travis Cole's wife. Her name was Danielle Cole, and she looked like the kind of woman who knew exactly how many vitamins her kids took, what time their soccer game started, and where her husband was supposed to be every night. I scrolled through their pictures. A family of 5. 2 boys, 1 girl, all under 10. Christmas photos. Summer barbecues. One of those Pinterest-perfect homes with chalkboard walls and live, laugh, love quotes in cursive above the fireplace. I hesitated. Not because I doubted she deserved to know, she did, but because I knew this would blow a hole in someone else's life too. Still, I told myself the truth that Alyssa never gave me. She deserves the choice. So I messaged Danielle. It wasn't dramatic. No accusations, no revenge posting. Just facts. Hi Danielle. I'm sorry to message you like this, and I wouldn't if it weren't serious. I believe our spouses are involved in something you may not be aware of. My name is Mark. I'm Alyssa's husband. We've been married for 5 years. I recently witnessed her and Travis together, and I've confirmed that they've been seeing each other for at least 6 months. I thought you should know before this gets worse. No threats, no anger, just a bullet of truth sent directly to where it needed to land. She didn't respond for 2 hours. When she did, it was 1 sentence. Thank you. I had a feeling. That was it. No denial. No defense. Just quiet confirmation that I wasn't the only one living next to a stranger in a mask. Later that evening, I got a call. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but I did. "Is this Mark?" A woman's voice said, low and steady. "Yes. This is Danielle Cole." She didn't waste time. She told me she'd known something was wrong for a while. That Travis had changed. Suddenly traveling more, guarding his phone, calling her paranoid when she asked questions. The usual playbook. She'd confronted him once before and he swore up and down nothing was happening. She said she wanted to believe him for the kids, for the image, but she'd already begun to prepare for the truth. I told her everything. From the moment I walked into Alyssa's office building, to the sidewalk kiss, to the confrontation that tore the floor out from under me. She listened in silence. Not a single interruption. And when I finished, she said something I'll never forget. "I hope you burn her life down. She's earned it." It wasn't anger in her voice. It was clarity. A woman who'd just been given the final puzzle piece and now saw the picture for what it was. A betrayal, not a bad chapter. A choice, not a mistake. After we hung up, I sat in the dark for a long time. Not thinking about Alyssa. Not even thinking about Travis. I thought about Danielle. How two people who'd never met had their lives twisted together by the selfish decisions of two liars playing with fire. The next day, the fallout started. Alyssa texted me early in the morning. "You went to his wife? Really, Mark? That's low. You've ruined his career." I stared at the screen. Ruined his career? That was her concern? "Good," I replied. "Let him explain that in his next interview." She didn't reply after that. But I knew what would come next. She'd shift strategies. Play the victim. Twist the narrative. So I got ahead of it. I contacted a divorce attorney, Jessica Wynn, recommended by a friend who'd gone through something similar and said, "She's kind, but if you're up against someone dirty, she'll bury them in paperwork before they can blink." Perfect. I walked into Jessica's office the next morning and laid it all out. Every detail. The affair. The financial movements. Her attempt to tie herself professionally to my company. Jessica didn't flinch. Just started taking notes and asking surgical questions. "Do you have evidence of infidelity?" "Yes." "Do you have joint assets?" "Yes." "Any kids?" "No." She looked up. "Good. That makes this cleaner." Cleaner. Nothing about it felt clean. But at least it felt real. Tangible. Like I was finally pulling my life back from the wreckage she tried to set on fire and walk away from without looking back. Jessica leaned back in her chair and tapped her pen. "We can pursue this aggressively or civilly. Up to you. What would you recommend?" I asked. "For someone who doesn't want revenge. Just truth, consequences, and a way out." She smiled, the kind of smile a surgeon gives before the first incision. "Then we file fast. We keep receipts. And we don't give her a single place to hide." That night, I slept for the first time in 4 days. Not well, but deep, because now this wasn't just surviving betrayal. This was war by another name. And I was finally ready to fight it. 2 days after my meeting with Jessica, I returned to the house. Not to talk. Not to negotiate. I wasn't there for closure or catharsis or any of that polished TV drama nonsense. I was there to take back the parts of my life she hadn't already infected. I arrived around noon. I knew she'd be home. She always worked remotely on Fridays, which, in hindsight, probably meant she needed a more flexible schedule for her extracurriculars. I knocked once. Didn't wait. I had a key. This was still my house, too. The door opened before I could turn it. There she stood, barefoot, holding a glass of wine. Noon. Wine. Alone. In leggings and one of my old hoodies, the one she always said smelled like me. I think that was supposed to disarm me. Didn't. "What is this?" she asked, arms crossing like a gate slamming shut. "Inventory day," I said. "I'm taking what's mine." "Seriously?" She laughed, though nothing was funny. You could have told me. I'm not in the business of giving you notice anymore. I walked past her, didn't look at her, didn't care what her face was doing. The air in the house felt like it had been exhaling since I left. Like it was finally relieved I was back to vacuum up the last of whatever sanity she hadn't corrupted. She followed me through the hallway, slow and deliberate, like a shadow that thought it still belonged to me. You're overreacting, she muttered. You told his wife. You're lawyering up. And now you're playing this dramatic little scavenger hunt around the house. Call it what you want, I said, tossing paperwork into a folder, grabbing spare chargers, the watch my grandfather left me, receipts for the couch she picked but I paid for. But you don't get to comment from the cheap seats anymore. That stung. I saw it flash across her face, that crack in the armor. But she covered it quick, like always. You know, she said from the doorway as I moved into the bedroom, if you just talked to me a few months ago, maybe none of this would have happened. I turned slowly, calmly. You're actually going to suggest this is my fault? She didn't blink. You weren't present, Mark. You were floating through life. Work, dinner, sleep, repeat. I needed something else. Someone who actually made me feel alive. No, you needed someone to lie with you and make it feel like a shared reality. I zipped the bag, stepped past her, and headed to the guest room. Grabbed some books, my camera, a sweater I hadn't seen in months. Probably shoved out of the way to make room for someone else's shirt once. Who knows? Then she dropped the line. I loved you, you know. Even when I started seeing him, I still cared. I stopped at the doorway, not turned, just still. You don't get to use that word. Why not? Because love isn't something you cheat through, Alyssa. Love doesn't delete people and rewrite history to justify a thrill. Love doesn't smile at your face in the morning and hold someone else behind your back at night. I turned finally. You cared? You burned the bridge and then sent a text saying, oops, that's not caring. That's cowardice dressed as clarity. She didn't say anything for a while, just stood there like a puzzle missing its edges. And then, right when I thought she might finally break, she smirked. You'll be back, she said. It wasn't desperation. It was calculation. Like she knew me. Like she'd already bet on my weakness and counted on my silence. No, I said, walking to the door. You're confusing me with the version of me that tolerated this for too long. That version's dead. She said something else as I closed the door behind me. I didn't hear it. I didn't care. Maybe it was an insult. Maybe a plea. Maybe just her rehearsing her victim role in case anyone else ever asked. But it didn't matter. Because I wasn't hers anymore. Not her safety net. Not her plan B. Not her predictable, ever-forgiving placeholder for real connection. I was done. On the drive back to Dylan's, I played music. Loud, angry music. Not because I was angry, I'd already passed that. I was awake now. Awake in a way I hadn't been for years. And for the first time in forever, I wasn't thinking about what she was doing. I was thinking about what I was going to do next. 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks of lawyers, documents, conversations that felt like transactions. 2 weeks of friends calling with voices soaked in either pity or fascination. The same way people rubberneck at a wreck on the highway, but still ask if you're doing okay. 2 weeks of Alyssa sending carefully spaced out texts trying to reshape the narrative piece by piece. First, it was silence. Then it was, you've made your point. Then, you're making a mistake. Followed by, we can still fix this if we just talk. I didn't reply, but what I did do, and this wasn't planned, not even remotely, was run into someone I hadn't seen in 7 years. Her name was Lena. And before you jump to conclusions, no, this isn't some rebound fairy tale. This isn't the part where I say, and then this amazing woman came along and healed me. No, Lena was part of my life before Alyssa. A name I hadn't even said out loud in half a decade. We ended amicably, long before Alyssa and I started dating. simply because our timelines didn't align. We were never messy, just unfinished. I saw her at the DMV of all places. We were both standing in line, both annoyed, both half asleep under fluorescent lights. Took her a minute to recognize me. Then her eyes widened like memory had just smacked her in the back of the head. "Mark!" I turned. My stomach flipped. Not because of some grand romantic epiphany, but because the universe had just reached out of a box of old VHS tapes and hit play on something I didn't even remember recording. "Lena," we talked, right there, for over an hour. In line, after the line, in the parking lot. Nothing flirtatious, just human. Someone speaking to me who had no idea who I was married to, what I'd just been through, or what kind of emotional nuclear fallout I was walking in. It was like meeting an old version of myself through someone else's memory. Someone who remembered me before I got tired, before I got dull, before I let myself become Alyssa's quiet support beam while she played architect with a blueprint she never showed me. At one point, Lena laughed, really laughed, and said, "You look different, like sharper, not older, just awake." That word again, awake. We didn't exchange numbers. It wasn't like that. It wasn't fate trying to slip in a rebound. It was just a reminder. I used to be a person, a whole one. I wasn't born as Alyssa's husband. Later that evening, I got another message from Alyssa. "I've decided to fight this. You're not taking the house. My lawyer says we can negotiate, but if you want to be aggressive, so can I." There it was. The shift. No more guilt baiting. No more emotional strings. Just threats. Like this was business now. Which, to her, it probably always had been. She'd used the marriage to cushion herself financially, emotionally, socially. And now that I'd finally thrown the switch and stepped off the tracks, she was scrambling to rewrite the script. I didn't respond. I sent the message to Jessica, who replied within minutes. Let her fight. I hope she enjoys court. Then came the next turn I didn't expect. Danielle, Travis's wife, messaged me again. He moved out. Finally admitted it. Not everything, but enough. I'm going forward with the divorce. I told the kids he got a new job somewhere else. Easier that way for now. Just wanted to say thanks. You gave me the final nudge. And then, also, Alyssa's still seeing him. Thought you'd want to know. My hands froze over the keyboard. Not because I didn't expect it. I did. But there's something about seeing it confirmed. Seeing the name you used to write in birthday cards next to another person's mess like it was just the next step on her to-do list. Alyssa didn't want repair. She wanted relocation. She wasn't grieving the loss of me. She was upgrading the illusion. So I called her. Not to argue. Not to ask. Just to finally say it. She picked up. Mark, you're still seeing him? Pause. Why do you care? I don't, I said. I just wanted to hear the cowardice in your voice. You think that makes you sound strong? No, I said. It makes me sound free. She tried to laugh. Came out cracked. You think you're winning? You're not. You're running. You're scared of starting over. I'm not scared of starting over, I said. I'm scared I'll forget what you taught me. About how fast someone can erase you while smiling to your face. You're so bitter, she said quietly. It's pathetic. No, I replied. What's pathetic is kissing a married man in front of your office like you were proud of it. What's pathetic is torching everything and blaming the guy who built it. She didn't respond. I let the silence linger. Then I ended the call. I deleted her number after that. I wanted no breadcrumbs, no trails, no doors left half open. I was done collecting bruises like they were souvenirs from a woman who thought being selfish was the same thing as being strong. Let her fight. Let her claw for every dollar, every dish, every piece of furniture we ever touched. Because I'm not tied to any of it anymore. The only thing I want from her now is distance. And I've finally started getting that mile by mile. The court date was set. Jessica warned me early on. Divorces like this don't end in silence. They end in noise. Be ready to hear things twisted into shapes you won't recognize. She wasn't wrong. Alyssa had filed her official response. No acknowledgement of infidelity. No mention of Travis. Her angle? Emotional abandonment. She claimed I'd disengaged from the relationship long before any separation was discussed, that I refused to participate in marital growth, and that the home was rightfully hers due to her greater contribution to its upkeep and renovation. She was rewriting the story, painting herself as a neglected wife backed into a corner. Her statements were dripping in self-victimization, dressed in just enough half-truths to make it all sound reasonable. But Jessica had prepared me for this exact strategy. Still, reading those words, it hit like a shovel to the chest. You expect someone to lie to others. You don't expect them to lie to paper, to swear it into the record like it's gospel. She wasn't just bending the truth. She was forging an entire narrative in which I was the villain she had to escape from. And somehow this didn't break me. Crystallized something. A day after receiving the documents, I returned to the house one final time. Not for anything material. I'd already taken what I needed. I just wanted to look at it all, the walls, the memories, the stillness, with open eyes. A proper goodbye to the version of me that lived here and didn't know he was being erased room by room. When I pulled into the driveway, her car wasn't there. The key still worked. I stepped inside. The house was so quiet I could hear the hum of the refrigerator from 3 rooms away. Everything was as I remembered, except now it felt like a museum. Something abandoned mid-curation. The living room still had the photo of us on the shelf. Our 3rd anniversary in Banff. I walked up to it, stared at the way she leaned into me in the picture. At the time, I thought it meant safety. Now I knew better. That lean wasn't love. It was performance. I picked up the photo, turned it over. Written in her handwriting was a note I'd forgotten she scribbled the day she framed it. "You'll always be my favorite place to come home to." I laughed. Not out of bitterness. Out of complete, hollow disbelief. Right as I was setting the frame down, the front door opened. She walked in, stopped when she saw me. Her face dropped for half a second, then rebuilt itself like it had trained for this moment. "I didn't know you were coming by," she said. "I'm not here to fight," I said. "Just wanted to see it all once, clear." She stood there awkwardly, keys still in hand. "Well, you've seen it." I nodded. "It's all yours, Alyssa. The house, the couch, even the lies. You can decorate it with whatever you want now." She rolled her eyes. "You act like I got away with something. Didn't you?" I asked. "No," she said, stepping closer. "I lost everything too." "You didn't lose me," I said. "You spent me, then complained when the account hit 0. She opened her mouth, probably ready to fire another line about how I emotionally drifted or whatever fiction she was selling now. But I cut her off. "I saw your affidavit." Her jaw locked. Just a twitch. But I caught it. "Cute story you told," I continued. "All those little edits to the truth. Must have taken hours." "I said what I had to say," she muttered. "Right?" I nodded. "Because telling the truth would have left you with nothing but guilt." She crossed her arms. "You're going to drag me in court, aren't you?" "No," I said. "I'm going to tell the truth. You're the one dragging yourself." And I'll never forget this. She looked at me with this wild mix of hatred and regret, like a child angry the toy she broke won't fix itself. "You'll regret this," she said. "Starting over isn't as clean as you think it is." I smiled. "You'd know. You've started over mid-marriage. Twice." She didn't respond. I walked past her, out the door and into the daylight. The same sky, the same breeze, but somehow it felt like stepping into a world that wasn't tilted sideways anymore. As I drove away, I didn't look back at the house. Didn't need to. Whatever ghosts live there now weren't mine anymore. Back at Dylan's, I found a message waiting on my phone. Not from Alyssa. Not from Danielle. From Jessica. Just a heads up, Travis's wife submitted her own statement. She included screenshots of your wife's texts. They're illuminating. We'll use them. I opened the PDF she attached. There it was. Alyssa, in her own words. Conversations with Travis, riddled with trash talk about me, admissions of lies, strategies on how to hide things, even plans to move in together after the divorce finalized. All time-stamped, all traceable. She had no idea her little power play had just detonated in her own face. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I leaned back, breathed deep, and realized, she's not just going to lose me, she's going to lose everything she used me to build. The deposition was set for the following Tuesday, 10 a.m. sharp. Jessica had warned me that Alyssa's lawyer would likely try to provoke something. Anger, inconsistency, anything they could twist to prove I was the unstable one. Stay steady, she said. Let them dig their own hole. I trusted her, but inside, I was tense. Not because I had anything to hide, but because I knew Alyssa had everything to lose, and she was the kind of person who'd set the whole board on fire if she couldn't win. The building was sterile. Glass walls, echoing footsteps, fake ferns. I sat in a quiet conference room, a pitcher of water sweating onto the table between us, and waited. Jessica reviewed our timeline again. I'd memorized it. Dates, texts, photos, bank movements, even screenshots Danielle had provided from Alyssa and Travis's conversations. Those messages were nuclear. In one, Alyssa outright typed, "If Mark finds out, I'll just say he was cold and controlling. Nobody will question it. He's too quiet to defend himself anyway." That line became evidence. Evidence that would shatter her credibility. Evidence she never thought would leave her phone. Then the door opened, and there she was. She walked in like she owned the building. Pencil skirt, blazer, hair pinned up like she was about to deliver a TED Talk on how to manipulate your way through a crisis. She didn't look at me, not really. A half glance, like I was a piece of office furniture she vaguely remembered owning. Her lawyer trailed behind her. Some smug, greasy-haired type who looked like he practiced smirking in the mirror. Jessica greeted them professionally, unfazed. I stayed silent. I wasn't here to perform. I was here to end it. The questioning started mild. Routine stuff. Describe your relationship at the time of separation. Were there any prior signs of distress? I answered clearly, concisely. I didn't editorialize. I just spoke the truth. Then came the turn. Her lawyer leaned forward, voice smooth. "Mr. Danner, would you describe yourself as emotionally distant?" Jessica cut in before I could speak. "Objection. Subjective." "Withdrawn," he said, then redirected. "Were there any moments where you expressed disinterest in your wife's emotional needs?" "I never withheld anything," I said calmly. "If she felt I was distant, she never told me. Not once. She just outsourced the conversation to someone else's bed." That made Alyssa shift. A twitch of her neck. Not enough to be seen as emotion, but enough for me to know she heard it. Then they brought up the financials. Tried to paint me as someone controlling the money, freezing her out. Jessica, calm as ever, slid over bank statements, time-stamped withdrawals she made to a private account, starting 5 months before she was caught. Their lawyer turned pale. Then Jessica did something I wasn't expecting. She opened a folder and pulled out printed screenshots. Danielle's gift. Messages between Alyssa and Travis, including a discussion where Alyssa laughed about how Mark still thinks we're working on things. Dated 2 days after our anniversary. Alyssa's lawyer went quiet. Jessica turned the paper, slid it across the table to him. "Would you like us to include these in discovery, or shall we assume full disclosure now?" He didn't answer. Alyssa finally looked at me, and for the first time, the first real time, she wasn't smug. She wasn't condescending. She was exposed. Like someone waking up in the wrong house with no way out. She knew. It was over. She knew this wasn't just going to be a split. It was going to be a reckoning. After the meeting, Jessica and I walked to the parking lot. She lit a cigarette. Didn't even ask if I minded. I didn't. She's going to settle, she said. You sure? She saw the cliff. She's got no parachute. If she pushes this to court, those texts will follow her for the rest of her life. I leaned against my car, looking up at the cloudless sky. I thought I'd feel happier, I said. You're not done yet, she replied. But you're winning. Quietly. Completely. That's the part she never expected. She was right. This wasn't a victory I could celebrate with champagne or high fives. It was the kind of win that came after a long, brutal war, where you don't cheer, you just finally rest. That night, I got one final message from Alyssa. You didn't have to destroy me. I never wanted war. I didn't respond. Because here's the truth. I didn't destroy her. She did that all on her own. I just stopped protecting the rubble. The settlement offer came 3 days later. It arrived in a formal envelope, delivered by courier, like it was some great olive branch instead of the last crumbling stone in a wall she'd built around her lies. Alyssa wanted to resolve things amicably. Suddenly, after months of psychological erosion, smirks, lies, courtroom whispers, and emails worded like war strategies. Now she wanted peace. Her terms were laughable. She asked to keep the house, both vehicles, and half of the remaining savings. As if nothing had happened. As if she hadn't rewritten our marriage into a martyr's monologue. Tried to sever me from my own spine, then smiled through the smoke. She even wrote a note attached to it in her handwriting, like it made the betrayal feel more personalized. Mark, I know we've both made mistakes. Let's not keep hurting each other. This can be over. Clean. No more lawyers. No more spite. Let's just end this with dignity. Dignity. From the same woman who once texted a married man. He'll believe whatever I tell him. He's conditioned. I didn't answer her. I handed it to Jessica. She read it over, deadpan as ever, then closed the file like she was sealing a coffin. She's panicking, she said. She's trying to cash out before the fallout finishes. What fallout? I asked. Jessica just smiled. The kind that said watch and see. 2 days later I got the call. Not from Alyssa. Not from her lawyer. Not from Danielle. From HR. Travis Cole was being investigated. Internal ethics review. His position at the firm had been temporarily vacated, and all consultancy contracts connected to him, including Alyssa's, were being reviewed for conflict of interest and inappropriate conduct. There it was. The fallout. Turns out, when you blow up 2 marriages, undermine professional integrity, and treat your entire romantic life like a chess game with no rules, eventually the board flips. And this time, Alyssa wasn't the one flipping it. I didn't celebrate. There's a kind of quiet that settles in when justice starts turning the gears. It doesn't feel like fireworks. It feels like gravity realigning itself. I got another message that night. This one short. Detached. Hope you're happy. That was it. No name. No punctuation. No attempt at closure. And that's when it hit me. She wasn't angry at what I'd done. She was angry that her version of the story didn't get to be the ending. That I hadn't curled up in a corner, begging for an explanation. That I hadn't played the defeated, fragile man she tried to script into existence. She was angry I'd healed faster than her story allowed. I walked outside that night. No music. No noise. Just stood under the stars, air clean, sky still. For the first time in months, there was nothing clawing at my chest. No urge to respond. No need to prove anything. Because silence isn't weakness. Sometimes silence is the sound of someone rebuilding. Brick by brick. Choice by choice. And now I was almost free. Just one final part left. The final hearing was quiet. Not the kind of courtroom drama people imagine. No shouting, no last-minute objections, no tears. Just paperwork, signatures, and the slow, ceremonial death of a marriage that had already been bleeding out long before either of us admitted it. Alyssa showed up wearing white. A white blouse, pressed, pristine, like she was attending a job interview, or worse, a wedding. The irony wasn't lost on me. Her hair was tied up tight, makeup flawless, expression blank, controlled. But beneath it all, I could see the tremble. Not in her hands, but in her stillness. Because stillness is a liar's last shield when they know there's nothing left to spin. She didn't speak to me. Not before, not during, not after. Her lawyer did the talking. Tried to adjust the terms again, asking for more flexibility on asset division, citing emotional strain and career instability. Jessica didn't even blink. She just passed over the revised exhibit, Danielle's messages, the screenshots, the timeline, the witness statements. The judge read it all in silence, lips tightening with every paragraph. At one point he looked up, not at me, not at her, just into the middle of the room. And he said, "These are not the actions of someone operating in good faith." That was it. The room shifted. Alyssa looked down. Her lawyer leaned in, whispering something I didn't hear. She gave the smallest nod, and just like that, they folded. The judge finalized the divorce that afternoon. She got the car she didn't want to pay insurance on, and the furniture she picked out for a version of our life that never really existed. I got the house. Full ownership. Sole control over the joint account that was now missing several $1,000s. A number she didn't contest because doing so would mean explaining where it went. We walked out of the courthouse through separate doors. No words. No look back. No cinematic rain. I went home. My home. For the first time, it felt like that word belonged to me. The living room was still half empty, the kitchen echoey, but there was a strange peace in the blankness. I stood in the center of it, turned in a slow circle and breathed. Deep, full. No ghosts here anymore. No rehearsed apologies or lips coded in someone else's promises. Just space. I didn't text anyone that night. No celebrations. No angry posts. No revenge rants. That part of me, the part that wanted to scream the truth to everyone who ever saw our smiling couple photos, he was gone. Replaced by something stronger, wiser, more dangerous in its stillness. A week later, I ran into Danielle again. We didn't plan it. Same grocery store, different aisles, a brief meeting between the coffee and frozen food. She looked lighter, not happy necessarily, but real, grounded, like someone who had clawed their way through the same fire and made it out, singed but breathing. We exchanged a look. No words, just a shared understanding. We survived. That's enough. So here I am now, not a victim, not a warrior, just a man rebuilding from ash. I learned that love doesn't always rot loudly. Sometimes it decays in silence, behind smiles, in shared dinners, during chore rotations and inside passive-aggressive text messages. And by the time you smell the smoke, the structure's already collapsing. I learned that not every apology deserves a response. Some people grieve the consequences, not the choices. Alyssa will probably rewrite this story a dozen more times. To her friends, to her next man, maybe even to herself. But the version that lives in my bones is not up for debate. And if you're reading this because you're feeling that itch, that low hum behind your eyes that says, something isn't right, don't ignore it. Don't wait to find a kiss on a sidewalk to believe your own instincts. You don't need proof to choose peace. You need courage. And mine didn't come all at once. Came in moments. Moments like walking out the door without looking back. Moments like saying, no, and meaning it. Moments like this one where I get to close this chapter fully, finally, and without rage. Because closure isn't about getting even. It's about getting free.